Hi creatives, welcome back to heisapro. Today we are going to be dealing with shadows. So in previous videos we have discussed some other CorelDRAW tools extensively. So if you missed any of them, I would leave video links in the description below. So let's get started. Basically, there are two tools that can be used to add shadows to objects or text in CorelDRAW. The first tool is the shadow tool, and it is used to apply shadows behind, below, or inside objects. To understand how to use the shadow tool, let's start by drawing objects. So you select the rectangle tool, then you click and drag. And let's add a color to the rectangle. We can now select the shadow tool. To apply shadow to the object, simply go to any of the edges of the object, then click and drag. And as you can see, a shadow has been added to the object. Now you will notice two small boxes joined by a thin arrowhead line, and this is known as the opacity slider. It is used to increase or decrease the opacity of the shadow. An alternative way to adjust the shadow opacity is by going up here and adjusting the transparency of the shadow. And right beside shadow opacity, we have shadow feathering, and it is used to sharpen or soften the edges of the shadow. As you can see, the edges of the shadow are softened, and if we were to decrease it, you would see that the edges of the shadow are sharper. So right here we have shadow angle, and this sets the direction of the shadow. As you can see, the direction of the shadow changes. And right beside shadow angle, we have shadow stretch, and this adjusts the length of the shadow. And right beside shadow stretch, we have shadow fade, and this adjusts the amount of fading at the edges of the shadow. We could manually adjust the shadow angle and the shadow length by moving the black box. Now we can also add color to the shadow by coming up here to shadow color, and here you can simply choose a color for the shadow. And lastly, to remove the shadow from an object, you simply click on clear shadow. The same process applies when adding shadow to a text. So let's select our text tool, then let's type, and let's scale the text. Let's also make it bold and add a color to the text. Let's now select the shadow tool. So simply go to the edge, click and drag. And you can always adjust the shadow angle and the shadow length and the opacity of the shadow. The second tool that we can use to apply shadow to objects is the block shadow tool. And if you go to the bottom right corner of the shadow tool icon, then come down and select block shadow. The main difference between the normal shadow tool and the block shadow tool is that the block shadow tool adds shadows in 3D blocks. To use the block shadow tool, simply select the object, then go to any of the edges of the object, then click and drag. And as you can see, a block shadow has been applied to the object. So let's also add block shadow to the text. So you select the text, then you click and drag. We can also add color to the block shadow by coming up here, then select a color. And as you can see, we have been able to create a very simple text effect by just using the block shadow tool. And lastly, to remove the block shadow from an object, simply select the object, then come up here and click on clear block shadow. So guys, that'll be all for today. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.